This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
And as if this isn't enough, after being on the shelf for a little bit, when it's time to start getting ready for WrestleMania season, because that's always sort of the way in this era, people looked at, big stories and big paydays. What are we doing for WrestleMania? What are we doing for SummerSlam? What are we doing for Royal Rumble? And on, by Royal Rumble, you've sort of got WrestleMania figured out, but Royal Rumble gets you ready for the big show. And now right before that happens, well, the WWE is going to change again because Vince is going to sign Hogan, Hall, and Nash, the NWO. We're going to do an NWO 2002 version here of an invasion. And it's been often discussed. You need to do something with that.
Yeah, just turn it off.
And as if that's not enough, after being injured with the whole Booker T thing, he's going to wind up not being where he wants to be for SummerSlam. And then of course the next big pay-per-view is the Royal Rumble, but that really just gets you set up for WrestleMania. But around that same time, Vince decides to throw another curveball and he's going to bring back the NWO. Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall are now going to invade WWE. And he in storyline, being Vince McMahon, is saying he's going to inject poison into the company. But this is a pretty controversial decision. I mean, even Meltzer would write, Vince decided to bring in Hogan, Hall, and Nash, three of the most influential people in the death of World Championship Wrestling, back to the WWF, possibly to reform the NWO. I can't tell you for certain whether they've put pen to paper and signed contracts yet, but Vince did pull aside the road agent Sunday afternoon to inform them of his decision. It really came as a slap in the face to the people who Vince had lied to repeatedly, telling them he wasn't going to sign them no matter what, while at the same time privately negotiating with them. And I understand that this is a controversial decision because you are just not too terribly removed. I mean, less than a year at this point from WCW going under, and it was a bitter war and these guys were going back and forth. And where were you on this? Did you think, this was a good move? Were you in favor of it? I know outwardly, some other guys weren't really popular on this idea.
Well, I was skeptical, but I knew that if we got all the stars aligned, that all three of those guys could help us a great deal. And again, they were heels, was NWO. Seeming to me, they were heels, positioned as heels more often than not on Nitro and so forth, that we needed. It gives our top baby faces new people to work with. And, I knew Steve and Kevin Nash had a real good relationship. I didn't know, I don't think Hogan and Austin I don't think they had any relationship. I don't think that Steve disliked Hogan. I just think that they just had not been at the same place at the same time and had worked together to any degree, if any. And then, and of course, Steve knew Scott very well. So, it was my issue with Vince was always the same. If they're willing to come here and integrate with the team in our locker room, then let's give it a shot. But if they have to have special treatment, they got to have their own locker room, the NWO. I said, that's a good way to alienate those son of bitches from everybody. And he agreed. And I said, but here's the other thing. Whereas at that time, and for several years prior to that and after that, I was the guy that was negotiating with talents. I said, it's not going to help us, our cause, to get these guys signed if you do not lead the negotiation. They're going to want to do business with the head of the company. And I don't have any problem with that, egocentrically or what have you. I'm a team guy. And if your goal, Vince, is to get these guys signed, and your vision tells you that this is going to be a great hire for us, then it's my obligation as your employee and as your head of talent relations to support that. If you're there and I can't change your mind, no different than the Austin turn. If this is what we're going to do, then by God, I'm going to buy into it 100% and support it. So the key there was, will they come in with a good attitude and be willing to change because those guys were power brokers in WCW. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, for sure.
They have influenced the locker room. That's why they're so polarizing. Some guys loved them because they're on the right side of the aisle. Some guys didn't like them whatsoever because they looked at them as being greedy or whatever, and they were on the other side of the aisle. So it was that's kind of where I was on the deal. The two things: attitude and Vince. You got to do the negotiation. At least let them get the FaceTime with them. Let them know that they're wanted. Let them know that we would like them to be here. We have some, this is a different company, Hulk, than it was when you were here last. Kevin, Scott, same for you guys. So, and we had a pretty harmonious locker room by and large. You're never going to have peace in the valley of a pro wrestling locker room. I don't care what company you're with. There's always going to be, skepticism. There's going to be paranoia, anxiety. It's things those natures because these guys are all of the level, Conrad, to come in and take top spots. So some of your top guys who had the in their mind's eye the right, and they did, to speak their mind. There's a couple of agendas there. Are they going to come up here and be shit disturbers? And the other thing that they would say, they may take my spot.
Right.
So that comes back to the great. And Vince loved the competition, So I had mixed emotions, but that's what the boss wanted to do. It's like, hey, if Nick Saban calls a play, you could bet your sweet ass a quarterback, no matter who it is, going to run it. Period. Well, timeout, coach. You think we should run this sweep? I was thinking about a pass. I don't give a fuck what you're thinking about. We're going to run the sweep because that's the play I called, type deal. I know Saban's not the offensive coordinator, but the point is, when the head guy says something in any environment, you should, if you're going to keep your job and you enjoy the money he's paying you, then try to do what he wants. Simple.
We should also mention that you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about, guys being worried about losing their spot. I mean, Kevin Nash even says, why would people, and he's talking about the boys, be excited about the NWO coming in? It's not like they're coming in mid card. So everybody knows if you've been toiling away at the mid card or working underneath, as they say, if some more quote unquote top guys come in, well, you're that much further away from your goal of being one of those said top guys. And you addressed it in your discussion there, the Hulk Hogan Austin relationship. Austin, when he goes to ECW, spoofs Hulk Hogan quite a bit. And apparently it comes out years later that Austin even had an idea to pitch himself as the brother of Hulk Hogan. Of course, that never happened in WCW, and probably thankfully so. But when he comes to the WWF now, Austin is the top dog. And Austin has been quoted as saying, Hogan was open to having a match. Me, not so much. I thought the styles would clash. I just didn't think it would be that great of a match. And I do think when you're sort of fantasy booking as a wrestling fan, Jim, you think about, man, what if Mike Tyson could fight Muhammad Ali? Right. Oh man, what if you had Johnny Unitas on one side and Tom Brady on the other? What if we could see LeBron and Michael Jordan go toe to toe? And now it feels like, hey man, we've got the Titan of the prior decade and now the current top guy. Let's put them against each other. And Austin just doesn't see it. Did you think that was a missed opportunity?
Pardon me. Yeah, exactly. It was a missed opportunity, but you got to have everybody in a match on the same page.
Right.
So, and Steve had it in his mind that Hogan's style and Steve's style were like oil and water. He just didn't feel the chemistry of having a really Austin was never about having good matches. Austin was about having great matches, and he knew better than anybody else in the world who he could work the best with, and Hogan wasn't on that list. And so, and maybe Steve could be wrong too. I'm not saying that Hogan and Austin couldn't have a good match. I mean, my God, look at the match that Rock had at WrestleMania 18 with The Rock. So, it was just Steve's stubborn guy, and he just didn't feel it. And so, but that's what we're trying to explain in this meetings, pardon me, with these guys, is the fact that, heck, there's a new sheriff in town. His name is Stone Cold. It's not Hulkamania anymore. But if we could use Hulkamania and what it was in a more in a bitter way, an angry way, whatever, maybe we could get a WrestleMania out of it. That's kind of the idea. but it just never came to fruition. It just never did happen because Steve didn't push for it. I think Hogan probably would have got along with it because it's been a great payday, and he would work with Austin. So it was interesting times. Personalities have so much to say about how good a match is, and talents have got to be willing to cooperate and to be giving, to be unselfish. And I don't know that would have happened in that match.
I got to tell you though, it's almost a blessing that it doesn't happen. While it is a great dream match, what we got instead is Rock and Hogan, which was just absolute magic. I mean, so many of today's wrestlers, including Cody Rhodes, would list this as one of the best matches of all time, just based on the excitement and the crowd reaction. I mean, listen, if you press mute, it's not nearly the same experience, but with the sound, it is without question one of the biggest and best spectacles in the history of wrestling, and certainly one of the most iconic WrestleMania moments. But it wouldn't have happened had Austin been open to the match. And to your point, and maybe Steve's, that match just wouldn't have been as good. That maybe it was a little less brawling, a little more showmanship, if you will, with The Rock in there.
Yeah. I'm drinking my screwdriver this morning. I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. And point on the pairing, the chemistry, and the between Rock and Hulk was excellent. They had, as you said, the match should have closed the show. They didn't do any favors for Triple H and Chris Jericho, who closed the show for the title. We didn't do them any favors. No. They should have gone on last. Hogan and Rock should have gone on last, which I know is going to upset the apple cart with some traditionalists, of which I am one of. But you always close the show with the title. You know, we had a match on AEW here a while back that Moxley. I don't think Moxley didn't close the show at the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view was done with the Stadium Stampede, which is again a little different route. Moxley didn't give a shit. He was fine. He had his good match with Brody Lee. They were physical. They beat the shit out of each other, and liked it. I saw that picture on social media of Moxley's bruised tailbone. I had a bruised tailbone playing high school football. I guess I'm being knocked on my ass so many times, but it finally caught up with me. And man, that is the most annoying. You can't get comfortable. You can't sit. You can't sleep. You can't find a spot that damn thing's not hurting. But that was the deal. You know, I think that we went a traditional way at WrestleMania 18 to close with Triple H and Jericho, two very strong workers, two very loyal guys, two Hall of Fame level talents, and the title. The title was the thing. And so, but in hindsight, knowing how the audience reacted to Rock and Hogan, you know, it would take, you got to be a buffoon not to say that's what should have closed the show, but it didn't at that point in time. But it was the Austin and Hogan lack of chemistry, as you said so wisely pointed out, it gave us Hogan and Rock, and that was a match that, again, we're still talking about all these years later.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.